Colorado and Deion Sanders made a ton of huge additions this offseason, but there are three players that I think are not being talked about enough.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you may get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and all of that jazz. We're talking about Coach Prime's transfer portal class because there are three players that I think stand out as guys who aren't getting the love they deserve, guys who aren't getting the attention they deserve. Now, granted, he brings in the top 5 portal class, and everyone's focused on the offensive line. So there's going to be no offensive lineman on this. We're going 2 players on the defense, 1 on offense. And we'll start with the offense. I think you look at the wide receiver position for Colorado last year, and they had Jimmy Horn Jr., they had Xavier Weaver, and they had Travis Hunter. Outside of that, I wouldn't say there was a receiver that stood out to me that was super reliable at all times. I think Colorado struggled with getting production from receivers that were not any one of those three. And I think that's obvious in kind of the catch distributions. Xavier Weaver had 68 catches. Travis Hunter had 57. Jimmy had 58. And then it drops all the way to 36 for Dylan Edwards, and then 31 for Mikey Harrison. So running back and tight end were 4th and 5th on the team in catches. Dylan Edwards is still in the mix. Obviously, Mikey Harrison is now at San Diego State. And then all of a sudden it drops all the way down to 17 for Javon Antonio. And then Tavares Dawson had 14. And then who else am I missing? Marion Miller had 11. So you lose 68 catches, 908 yards from Xavier Weaver, who's off to the NFL. And it's like, who's going to step in and fill those shoes? They brought in a ton of wide receivers. They brought in Terrell Timmons. They brought in Draylon Miller. They brought in a few other guys in the portal. LeJonte Wester is one of them, but Will Sheppard is the one that stands out to me as the guy that needs more love, more attention. Now, this may be not the boldest take, but I do think that of all the transfers that Colorado brought in, he has one of the higher ceilings. I think outside or besides Cordell Russell and like LeJonte Wester, like I said earlier, I don't think he's generated the buzz that he deserves. He led Vanderbilt in catches and was in the same wide receiver unit that London Humphreys was in. If you guys don't know who London Humphreys is, he is one of the top wide receivers in the portal this past season. He was a freshman, 6'3", 186 from Nashville. He ended up transferring to Georgia, but it was actually Will Sheppard who led the way for the Commodores this past season. 47 catches, over 680 yards. He's 6'3", and I think what Colorado was missing last year for Shedeur, especially down the stretch, was a big target that he could consistently trust. Mikey Harrison wasn't always getting in. I think Xavier Weaver was kind of the biggest target in a way, but I think Will Sheppard brings in that ability to make 50-50 balls, 60-40 or 70-30 balls. I think he gives Shedeur a chance to kind of, I want to say throw it up because that sounds so casual or like there's not a plan, but he's 6'3", 6'4", which is a couple inches taller than each of the other receivers. Travis is 6'1". Sorry, I was looking at their heights. And then Jimmy is 5'10". So he gives Shedeur a massive target. And if you guys remember, Shedeur had a huge target at Jackson State that he loved throwing to frequently. So maybe he's going to take some more risks. Maybe he's going to push the envelope a little bit more, which opens up big plays for Shedeur and the offense. And it also opens up plays for Jimmy and Travis, because by having a wide receiver that defenses know that the quarterback may take a risk with, they're going to have to kind of shift their attention to him, which means they're shifting their attention off of Wester, Horn, or Travis Hunter, which means someone's going to be open. So I think Will Sheppard kind of opens up things for Shedeur. I also think he opens up things for the other receivers in this group. So now let's go to my first defensive guy. We'll go to a big guy up front. We're going to Chidozie Nwankwo. So Chidozie is undersized, and I think a lot of Colorado's issues last season stemmed from the fact that they were, I want to say, a smaller team, but they were a smaller team that wasn't physical. I think you can lack size, but you can't lack physicality and strength. And Chidozie lacks neither physicality nor strength. At 5'11", 295 pounds, he is not your traditional size defensive tackle, but he's a playmaker. He has a nose for the ball. And I think he's going to really help clog the rushing lanes up for this Colorado defense. Excuse me. If you don't realize how important it is to clog the rushing lanes in the Big 12, let me tell you, just going through the Big 12 teams off the top of my head: Devin Neal at Kansas, Taj Brooks at Texas Tech, Garrett Green at West Virginia. Not a running back, but he's one of the fastest players probably in the conference. He's the quarterback. KJ Jefferson at UCF. They also have a really talented running back at UCF. Utah has Jalen Glover, Micah Bernard. They have talented running backs all throughout this conference. And so if Colorado cannot stop the run, they will be torn apart on defense. And that was their biggest issue last season. We saw it every game, even the games that they won, like TCU, for instance. Had TCU kind of taken the ball out of Chandler Morris's hands and just continue to run the ball, they would have beat Colorado probably by 2 scores. But for some reason, they kept challenging Travis Hunter. They kept throwing it on this Colorado defense when obviously Chandler Morris was not the guy to do that. And so it's like, if they just ran the ball more, they likely could have won. And I think that was Colorado's biggest issue last season, was stopping the run. So then everybody's focused on the run, and then it opens up the pass, makes them more susceptible because they're obviously having to load the box up or whatever it may be, whatever their adjustments, if there were any last season, were made. So if I'm Robert Livingston, I'm like, you know what? I need this defensive line, this defensive front to be so physical, so strong at stopping the run that it makes it nearly impossible to do that, to run the ball against us, because running the ball is kind of like, I want to say, I don't want to say it's the key to winning, but if you have a rushing attack that can actually help out the defense, makes a huge difference. Chidozie was graded as 166th defensive tackle in the country. He had a 77.5 rush defense grade. So he obviously plays well above his size, is not afraid to get in the mix there and kind of get dirty and make big plays. Not play dirty, but get in the mix, get dirty in the middle, where the big fellows are, and make those big plays. And then my third most underrated addition comes in at corner. It's DJ McKinney. I've talked about him quite extensively, but I don't think a lot of people are. And I think a lot of the reason stems from the fact that they have Travis Hunter and they have Cormani McClain, who I've already said, I think Cormani McClain is due for a breakout year. I think Cormani McClain, at least in what he shows in the videos talking wise, where they're asking him what the difference is, I feel like he knows what he needs to do to make a difference. But if he's able to, or whether or not he's able to, that's up to him and just kind of how things shake out. So Colorado brings in DJ McKinney. They bring in Preston Hodge. They bring in these secondary members that can help. They're also moving Carter Stottmeyer to safety. So there's one less corner right there. I think that they have kind of a clear path to go at corner. You have Travis Hunter at one, and then at the other one, it's DJ McKinney or Marion Cooper or Cormani McClain, whoever steps up and claims that spot. I think DJ McKinney will be in the rotation a lot. If Travis needs a break, I expect DJ to play there. If Omarion Cooper and Cormani McClain don't claim that winning spot, I expect him to be there. He is someone who is experienced in the Big 12. He is someone who has proven, had a decent coverage season last year, had 5 pass deflections this past year. So he's played in the Big 12. He's proven himself. And the best part about him is he's not a one-year rental like these other guys. He is only I think he was a redshirt freshman this past season. So Colorado gets him for possibly a couple more years, maybe 3 at the most. And I think having some stability in this defense, or stability in general on this roster, makes a huge difference. I think a lot of people are excited about the additions that Colorado made this past season, and they should be. But realistically, outside of Shiloh, Travis, and Levante Bentley, and I'm trying to think if I'm missing anyone, possibly Shane Cooks, but I think his spot I think he'll be more of a rotational piece. We'll say at most they're returning 4, or Trevor Woods. So at most they're returning 4 or 5 starters. So there's 6 new guys in there, probably 7, even more likely 8. So there's going to be 8 new starters realistically on this defense. And so you want some sort of consistency. You want some sort of, like, we don't want to flip the roster every single year and have different starters at every position every single year, because that makes chemistry difficult, and that makes sort of making sure you have the right people difficult. So I think DJ McKinney is kind of a long-term value type of guy, and I really like the additions that Coach Prime made. You comment below who your favorite transfer portal addition is. It could be underrated or just someone that you really are really excited to see, but comment below who you think is the most exciting transfer portal addition they made. In terms of quarterbacks, I think Colorado kind of has an interesting situation after Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to talk about that when we come back. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So I've talked about this before, and I know this isn't like the most popular topic, but we eventually have to plan for life after Shedeur Sanders. And I personally don't know if Colorado's quarterback of the future is on the roster. I've talked about it a couple times, but Julian Lewis is a 5-star who's committed to USC. He's taken visits to Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, of all places, and he says he's fine with his USC commitment, but realistically, I think USC has kind of proven, or at least Lincoln Riley, not USC, that he's not prone to recruiting and or developing his guys. His biggest successes outside of Caleb Williams, obviously, who transferred with him, were Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and those three guys were all transfers. He has shown a willingness to go to the portal, get a guy, and it's usually guys that are kind of like multi-year guys. I think Jalen Hurts was only 1-year rental. And he shows that he will, sorry, I got dog hair flying everywhere. He shows that he will get these guys, develop them for a couple years, and then do the same thing or bring in multiple transfers at once so that way they have one ready and waiting. Miller Moss is probably going to start this next season. And then they brought in Jalen, I think it's Maiava from UNLV. That's how you say his last name. Either way, he has his quarterback of the future all lined up. And so it's like, does Julian Lewis stick with USC? I don't know. I think Colorado should make a push for him, and they're also making a push for Notre Dame commit Deuce Knight. So he's a southpaw quarterback, which just means he's left-handed, number 62 overall player in the country, 5th quarterback in the country, 6'5", 195 pounds. He's a lefty. He draws comparisons to Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick. He has a cannon of an arm. He has kind of like the prototypical dual threat ability that everyone wants realistically in their quarterbacks these days, because you want a quarterback that can create plays with his legs, and you want a quarterback that can adjust or make plays if your offensive line is not where they need to be. Colorado this past season. So if you look at Deuce Knight's kind of breakdown, this is what they had to say about him. Left-handed, dual threat with an elite physical profile that has plenty of seasoning, that needs plenty of seasoning if he's going to reach his full potential. Measured in at roughly 6'5", grade A testing numbers, 4'5", 40-yard dash, 41-inch, almost 42-inch vertical, and a 4.39 shuttle time, has tons of velocity and can make plays with his legs. And realistically, he is someone that I think if Colorado could land would be another perfect replacement for Shedeur. I think Colorado's just moving forward. You never know if your quarterback is going to be as good as Shedeur. That's a lot to ask. Shedeur is one of the most pure passers in college football, and he also happens to be able to run if needed. I think Colorado in the future should probably target quarterbacks that can run and are also or more willing to run, if you know what I mean. Not that Shedeur is not willing to run, but he knows that he needs to make plays with his arm. And he also knows that he can't always trust his offense line. With the offense line being built up and quarterback being so important, I have a threat quarterback. And I think by targeting Julian Lewis and Deuce Knight, Colorado's kind of showing what their future plans are. They want a quarterback who could do a little bit of everything and kind of make up for their flaws elsewhere, because you never know if you're just going to get a quarterback that is elite at throwing the ball. We'd all like to have elite quarterbacks all the time. I promise you, if you go to every program in the country, they'll tell you, yeah, we'd love to have an elite quarterback, but unfortunately we do not have that yet. And so I think Deuce Knight is a really interesting kind of guy to pursue for Colorado. Now, he is pledged to Notre Dame, and he is someone who isn't really looking elsewhere, but I do think he's kind of going through the experience and kind of talking to these programs. But if Colorado was able to land one of Deuce Knight or Julian Lewis, I think that'd be huge, because like I said earlier, I don't think their quarterback of the future is on the roster. I think Ryan Staub, to me, is the most proven quarterback in that room, which isn't saying much. I think he has the highest potential. And then I would, right there under him, I put Walter Taylor. Walter Taylor hasn't shown a lot because he hasn't played a lot, but from what I've read, from what I've been told from people who cover Vanderbilt, he doesn't have the best accuracy. He's a freak athlete, 6'7", 6'8", big guy, big arm, but does he have the accuracy? And I don't think you want to worry about accuracy issues at your quarterback. The Wade twin, Destin, I believe it is. He is someone who I was told probably projects as a tight end somewhere. Probably will not end up finishing his career as a quarterback. That's what I was told. Whether that comes to fruition or not, I don't know. But he's also someone not experienced. So Ryan Staub kind of stands out as a front runner. And then I look at that Utah game and I'm like, does Ryan Staub stand out as someone who can lead this program to a championship? And it's no shots at Ryan Staub. We just don't know what he is. We saw him play against a Utah team that was depleted by injury, had some good throws, had some touchdowns called back, which we all remember. Sound off in the comments about that because I know you guys remember that. Tell me if I'm crazy if that Travis Hunter catch was not a touchdown, because I think it was. Either way, you guys will let me know. But I don't think Colorado has their answer at quarterback on the roster right now, which is okay because Shedeur Sanders is there. Do they go for a transfer again? Do they try to get, because every year there's going to be some sort of transfer market for quarterbacks. But realistically, I think they need to do some work in recruiting. And I think Deuce Knight would be a really interesting addition just because of what he brings to the table. When we're talking about recruits in the future and players in the future, I want you guys to know, because I've seen some comments. Film breakdowns are something I wish I could do on here, but per copyright stuff, it's not allowed. The only thing I could do is huddle, which is high school recruits. So when I have Brian Smith, our recruiting insider, come on, we'll go over some film of guys like Deuce Knight and other players. But I can't have game film or television broadcast on my show. Otherwise, I will get flagged and get in trouble. Just want to let you guys know that. But either way, when we come back, we're going to be talking about what this season looks like if it's a success and what can make it a failure, because I do think not making a bowl game could be considered a failure. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates, quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write the job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon to post your jobs for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs, where I appreciate you guys for making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We are nearing 5,000 subscribers. I appreciate all the support that you guys have given me. Would love to see that 5,000 subscriber mark. We are currently at 4,850. Excuse me. It's hard to read for me, apparently. But let's talk about what this season is for Colorado. What is a success for Colorado? I think, and I know a lot of people, this is like, if Colorado does this, I still think we could consider this a good season. Or if Colorado doesn't do this, I still think it's a failure. Obviously, Colorado winning the Big 12 or making it to the playoff would be a tremendous success. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying that can't happen. I think Colorado getting to 8 wins and a bowl game would be a tremendous success. You look at their schedule this season, and I don't think it's a very friendly back half, but I do think it's a friendly start to the season. I look at the schedule and I see a first 5 games against North Dakota State, Nebraska, Colorado State, Baylor, and UCF. I see that's a 5-game slate where I realistically think they should be at worst 4-1. I think they could go 5-0, but at worst 4-1. So then it's like, okay, they're starting hot. I think if Colorado's 5-0, 4-1, they'll probably be ranked in the top 25 again. And then they get a bye week. And then they have Kansas State at Arizona. I think that's a tough stretch. Realistically, I think they lose both those games. I think possibly they could split them, but I don't know if that's really a confident 2-game stretch where I'd be like, yeah, they're going to win those games. Then they have Cincinnati, who's going to be one of the worst teams in the conference. Bye week at Texas Tech, which I think will be a tough matchup where people are throwing tortillas and it's going to be a hostile environment that night in November. But I do think they could beat Texas Tech. Then they have Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. I think they could probably lose all 3 of those games. So I'm looking at, I would say 1, 2. I'm looking at 7-8 wins right here. And I think that's a great season. You go from 4 wins to 8 wins, we'll say, and that's doubling your win total. You're making a bowl game. You're showing that you're doing the right things coaching wise. You're showing that your team is taking the steps needed on offense and on defense, discipline wise. And it just shows what this program can be. Now, obviously, it'd be somewhat of a disappointment because it's the last Shedeur year. And so I feel like the ultimate year. So this is ultimate success or failure. Ultimate year, Colorado wins or is competing for the Big 12, and which means they're competing for the playoff in essence. I think that'd be the ultimate year for Colorado, which would be even huger, even bigger for them. Because this Colorado team with some momentum about after winning games, it's over. It is over for other teams in the Big 12 because Coach Prime will have his pick of the litter when it comes to recruiting. Will have his pick of the litter when it comes to portal players. They won't be losing out on portal players to Texas Tech. They won't be losing out on portal players to Utah, whatever it may be. They will be a force to be reckoned with. A failure for this season. I think it's quite simple. There's not really a number. I guess there is a few numbers, but a failure to me is them not making a bowl game. I think this schedule, even though it's difficult at the end, I think it kind of sets them up to, like I said, start hot and get to 6 wins around the time November rolls around. Or even October. If they go 5-0, then they just have to win one of their last 7 to make it to a bowl game. And I feel like that's very doable. Obviously, they only had to win 2 of their last, I think, what was it? I think 2 of their last 5 or 6 last season. No, because they started off 4-2. That's 6. They had to win 2 of their last 6 to make it to a bowl game last season and were unable to do that. So if they start off 5-0, they only have to win 1 of their last 7, which I feel like is very possible. If they don't make a bowl game, I'm going to question a lot of things. And you're probably going to get on me for this, but they improved in the trenches on both sides of the ball. That was their biggest weakness. They got Shedeur Sanders more weapons. They have more help on the defense for Travis Hunter, which I talked about yesterday, should help Travis Hunter have an even bigger year. And I think they have some consistency and maybe possibly better coaching. And so those 3 things don't equate to a bowl game. It's like, okay, what does the staff need to make it to a bowl game? Like, what are the next steps? You have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You have one of the best overall players in the country in Travis Hunter. You have a really talented safety in Shedeur Sanders. You have a really talented offense, and you can't make it to a bowl game. I think that would be considered a failure. I really do. And so I think I already said my record prediction. This is like my way too early record prediction is 7-5. I think that's very feasible for them. If they finish 5-7 or 4-8 again, it's like, oof. There's going to be questions about Coach Prime. That's what it comes down to. I don't think he would disagree with that. I think he would say if he doesn't make to at least a bowl game this next season, he would be considered a disappointment. So in his own eyes. So I don't think that's outlandish, but I do feel like the seats would start to get a little warmer or the pressure would ramp up a little bit. But I don't think that's in the cards for Colorado. I just think it is either make a bowl game to be a success or miss a bowl game to be a failure. And I think it comes down to being as simple as that. You guys comment below what is a success to you and what is a failure to you, and let me know, and we could hash it out in the comment section. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making Locked On Buffs your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow. We need 5 stars. Let's get to 5,000. We're almost there. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys have a great Tuesday.